back to NFL Live, where we ask these sincere questions. After back-to-back seasons with 17.5 sacks, Trey Hendrickson's long-term future was the topic of last offseason in Cincy. After an off year, Hendrickson limited to just 4 sacks in 7 games played. Bengals Director of Player Personnel Duke Tobin was asked about using the franchise tag on the edge rusher.
I'm not going to talk about how we're going to deploy our resources and what our intention is with the tag, or, I'm not going to close any doors on any player that we've had or any of our free agents up here today. I'm just not going to do that. Trey's been a great player for us. He didn't have the year he wanted this year. We didn't have the year we wanted this year. Those are factors, and we'll see where we go from there. But in terms of how we're going to deploy the tag, if we are going to, that's not something I'm going to talk about here.
So, Dan Graziano, Duke Tobin there, keeping cards close to the vest or the quarter zip. What are you hearing about Cincinnati's plans with Trey Hendrickson?
Yeah, that they haven't ruled anything out, including using the franchise tag or a transition tag to keep him there or to set up for a potential trade. Tough needle to thread, given that he was unhappy last year, but that they didn't want to commit to him beyond 1 year. You could be creating the same kind of problem. And if you're setting up for a trade, it's kind of hard to imagine a team wanting to trade something for a 31, 32-year-old edge rusher on a franchise or transition tag number, given the depth we're seeing in the free agent market in the draft this year at the edge position. So I think in the end, it's likely that they part ways, and Cincinnati knows it has to pretty much rebuild its entire defensive line and help on the back end as well after the year they just had on defense.
It's a curious situation because we went through all this over the summer. I mean, he's talking about how he met his wife, a nurse, in Cincinnati, and how he's built his family in Cincinnati, and he's emotionally connected. But there was so much drama this past summer when he's talking to local media on his own that you almost say, okay, this is a natural parting of ways. This could be a right place to go off the exit ramp, and maybe he goes and explores his third team. Remember, he was their first big free agent signing in many years when they signed him from the New Orleans Saints. But it's been a nice ride. I would be very surprised if he was either tagged or if they came to terms with a new monster deal with Trey Hendrickson. It's been a nice ride. I feel like this is a good time in the timeline after what we went through last offseason. Maybe it's time for Trey to finish his career somewhere else.
Yeah, I completely agree with you guys. I think this is the best for both parties. It's clear that Trey Hendrickson wants to move on. They did like a little patchwork job last year to make everybody kumbaya to play the season, but that didn't work. Trey didn't have the type of protection and guarantees that he wants, but he went out and played anyway and didn't have a good season. So I think it's best for both parties if Trey moves on. I think he's probably looking to get like a 2 or 3 year deal with a couple years of guaranteed money. And I think if you're Cincinnati, it's time to play some of those young guys that you drafted. Put those guys on the field, allow them to get out there, because at some point when you draft these young guys, you got to put them on the field. So I think it's best for both parties to move on. Trey Hendrickson to go his separate ways, and for Cincinnati to start playing some of those young guys.
Gosh, 2021-22 season, Cincinnati goes to back-to-back AFC title games, went to the Super Bowl, the first of those. 3 straight playoff misses since. New on NFL Live, Mel Kiper had Ruben Bain, edge rusher, going to Cincy in his latest mock draft, and Bain spoke this morning about rising to the occasion in big games.
I can make a play every play, each play. My effort going to determine how the outcomes of the games is, and I came in with the mindset just to kill all mentality, because it's a playoffs, it's a win to go home. And if you check my track record in the playoffs, that's my best football of my life.
Bain also said no teams have brought up his potentially less than ideal arm length this week. We'll keep an eye on those measurements tomorrow. Bain, one of 11 front 7 players Mel Kiper has going in round 1 of this week's latest mock. We've already touched on David Bailey, Arvell Reese. Booger, take us through some of the D linemen you like in this class.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the aforementioned Ruben Bain. To me, I don't care what the arm length says. I don't care what the tape. When you turn it on, he is absolutely outstanding. He dominates the guy in front of him. If you don't think he can play a defensive end, you reduce him down to defensive tackle. He's been outstanding. At some point, you stop worrying about the measurables and you just worry about the football player. Don't get caught up in the arm length and how tall he is. I just know that when you turn the tape on, he's probably been the most dominant player in this draft. And the guy on the other side, Akeem Mesidor, we're going to talk about how old he is. 25 years old, played a lot of football. But as far as a pure defensive end, pure pass rusher, a guy that can play inside and outside, a guy that can get to the quarterback, in a day and age where we're looking to get pass rush, he is a ready-made pass rusher. His repertoire is already set. I think if you get Bain, if you get Mesidor, you're getting a guy that can get to the quarterback. On the other side, I look at Zion Young out of Missouri. When you talk about a guy who can line up and play the run and rush the passer adequately and do them both at a high level, you're talking about Zion Young. I think throughout this draft process, his stock is going to continue to go up, up, up and away, as Dickie B would say, because people are going to realize he's not just a pass rusher. He's a complete defensive end that can set the edge and penetrate and make plays in the backfield, as you can see with his 18 tackles for losses last season. One thing about this draft, you'll hear a lot of people say, well, this draft is not a good draft. Everybody's looking forward to 2027. Here's what I'll tell you. If you need a defensive lineman, if you need an edge rusher, if you need somebody to impact your team on the front seven, this is a draft for you, because it's going to go 25 or 30 deep, I think, in the first 4 rounds as far as guys that can play and put their hand in the dirt and get after the quarterback.
Oh, yeah, that's been the consensus at edge rush. Speaking with local media at the Combine this week, Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni called A.J. Brown, quote, a great player, a good teammate, a good person, but could not guarantee Brown will be an Eagle next season. Here's Sirianni and GM Howie Roseman on Brown's status.
He has meant so much to our football team these past 4 years, and like I said, I've always said I've never hated my relationship with him, and we're at a point that, you know, we want to keep good players around. Always excited to have him on the football team and look forward to continuing that relationship. I know I want to continue that relationship. I know he wants to continue that relationship, and excited about that.
AJ's been a great player for us. Not a good player, a great player for us. He does have tremendous character, and so I think from our perspective, we're looking to add to our roster. We're not looking to subtract. And so, you know, I've been really consistent in saying that.
Since 2019, when Brown entered the league, 4 players have 6 seasons with at least 1,000 receiving yards. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans, Stephon Diggs. And Brown's gone over 1,000 in all 4 seasons with Philly, the only Eagle ever with 4 1,000-yard seasons. Somebody familiar with Brown from time together in Nashville, current Patriots coach Mike Vrabel, who talked about Brown pretty openly today.
It has meant a lot. I've watched him grow. I've watched him mature. I'm proud of him. Proud of the father that he is. I'm proud of the husband, and that has nothing to do with where he plays and where he played. So those are the things that are important. You know, we reach out and text each other during the things that happen good to each other, and sometimes things don't go so well for the people that you're close with, and you text those as well. So it's a two-way street of support and reminders of what got us to where we are here today.
Booger McFarland, you hear that from Mike Vrabel. Could you see Brown getting traded to New England? Boog, you got me? All right, let's go to Graz. Graz, you're on the ins and outs of a lot of these transactions. What do you think about the potential of A.J. Brown in Foxborough?
I think it's unlikely. Look, I mean, we had Saquon Barkley on NFL Live late last week, and he told us in no uncertain terms A.J. Brown is a Patriots fan. He had been on a Patriots podcast with Gronk and Edelman and had some comments about that. But talking to people around here, it doesn't sound like the Eagles feel any kind of compulsion to get A.J. Brown out of their building, or that they feel any real desire to get A.J. Brown out of their building. That said, it's the Eagles. It's Howie Roseman. If somebody calls, he picks up the phone, and they'll assess any potential trade for its overall value. They believe they would have to get an awful lot in return to justify moving on from A.J. Brown, who, as Howie said, excellent player for them, has helped them win a Super Bowl. So I would think at this point, it doesn't sound likely that the Eagles will end up trading A.J. Brown. You just can't rule out the possibility that they get the kind of offer that blows them away.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is that Howie Roseman's usually in acquisition mode on the other end. He's usually a buyer. He's not necessarily a seller, especially a guy who still can play and is still considered one of the best wide receivers in the sport. I also go to the New England side of it. Last year, the Patriots had the most cap space in the league, and they spent more than any other team in free agency. I know that wasn't a big story during Super Bowl week. It was this great rise from Drake May. They actually bought a lot of players, and Mike Vrabel was asked about it today. He said, traditionally, if I want to go to Neiman Marcus or Nordstrom's, if I want something, I'll buy it, and I usually can, and that's the job of Elliott Wolf in the front office to make it work. This year, they don't have that same salary cap space. So even bringing in A.J. Brown for New England, it would take a lot of cap gymnastics, and it would certainly take a bounty of picks and other things to get him over from Philly. So I hate to dampen it. I hate to say no. I kind of have that reaction Booger did when we first started the segment, just kind of blank face, and we'll see.
Yeah, that kind of freaked me out as I started talking. I thought Booger was freezing and staring at me. Hey, Graz, what are you going to say? Yeah, look, I think on the Patriots end, they do need to continue to build out their roster around Drake May. And they tried to get a #1 receiver last offseason. They end up with Stephon Diggs, who played very well for them, but probably doesn't necessarily fit that description at this point in his career. So I think they'll poke around. But to Peter's point, the assets it would take, not only bringing him in and paying him $29 million, but what it would take to get him. If you're the Patriots, do you really want to be thinking about using first and second round picks that way, as opposed to trying to find foundational pieces that are going to be with you for a long time as you build out what's obviously an extremely promising roster that was just in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, and going back to your point, Graz, about the addition of Stephon Diggs, 1,000-yard receiver, that's awesome. He was the only wide receiver on the roster to get over 600 yards, and he does turn 33 in November. Not long in the tooth, but you would like some younger pieces there with a 23-year-old QB. Hey, time for one more thing before we go. Jim Harbaugh's mantra has found